Hello, my friend. Listen, I need to tell you something that might sting a bit, but I promise it's coming from a place of genuine care. Your mind right now? It's probably not your best friend. In fact, if we're being brutally honest with each other, there's a good chance it's actively working against everything you're trying to build for yourself. I know that sounds harsh. Trust me, I get it. But here's the thing. Every single morning when you wake up, your brain is running these invisible scripts, programs that were installed years ago, maybe decades ago, and nobody ever asked you if you wanted them. These scripts are making decisions for you before you even realize you're making a choice. They're keeping you stuck in patterns that feel comfortable, but are slowly, quietly destroying the life you actually want to live. And look, I'm not talking about the obvious stuff here. This isn't just about scrolling too much or hitting snooze. We're talking about something way deeper. Mental. Programs that have literally carved themselves into your brain's wiring, making mediocrity feel like home and excellence feel like a foreign country you'll never visit. Here's what kills me. 99 out of 100 people will go through their entire lives never realizing they're trapped in this invisible prison. They'll think their thoughts are original, their decisions are conscious, their habits are just who they are. But by the time we're done here, you're going to see the truth. You're going to understand exactly how these patterns formed, why trying harder never works, and most importantly, the specific system to break free and rebuild your mind from the ground up. This isn't some feel-good motivational speech. I'm not here to pump you up with temporary energy that fades by Tuesday. What I'm about to share with you is rooted in actual neuroscience, the kind of stuff that explains why your brain does what it does and how you can literally rewire it. So if you're ready to stop being pushed around by your own mind and start taking real control, let's dive in. Chapter 1. The Invisible Programs Running Your Life. Right this second, as you're reading these words, your brain is executing thousands of automated routines you have zero awareness of. Every thought that crosses your mind, every feeling that bubbles up, every action you take without thinking, all of it is being controlled by neural circuits that were built through years of repetition. Here's the scary part that most people never grasp. The vast majority of these programs are working directly against your goals. Your subconscious mind, the part of you that's running the show about 95% of the time, has been programmed by everything you've experienced, everyone you've been around, every fear you've accumulated, and every limiting belief that got planted in your head when you were too young to question it. It's operating on software that was designed for survival, not success. For safety, not growth. Think about it like this. Imagine you bought a computer in 1995 and you're still running the same operating system 3 decades later. No updates, no patches, just the same old programs trying to handle a completely different world. That's literally what's happening in your head right now. Every time you procrastinate, every time you take the easy route when you know the hard one would serve you better, every time you sabotage yourself right when things are going well, that's not you making those calls. That's your subconscious running its default programming the same way a thermostat kicks on when the temperature drops. Automatic, unconscious, unstoppable. Let me ask you something personal. When's the last time you tried to change something about yourself? Maybe you wanted to start your mornings differently, move your body consistently, eat in a way that actually fuels you, or stop losing hours to mindless distractions. You probably started strong, right? Those first few days, maybe even weeks, you were on it. You felt different. You felt like this time it would stick. And then what happened? Slowly, almost imperceptibly, you slipped back. Not because you're weak, not because you lack discipline, but because your subconscious detected a threat to its established patterns and pulled you back to what felt familiar. Your brain literally said, "Nope, this new version of you feels dangerous," and yanked you back to your comfort zone. Your brain has this built-in negativity bias that's hardwired from evolution. It's constantly scanning for threats, problems, things that could go wrong. This was incredibly useful when our ancestors were dodging predators and surviving harsh environments. But now, in today's world, this same programming is sabotaging everything you're trying to build. Your mind is always looking for reasons why you can't achieve what you want, why you're not good enough, why you should stay exactly where you are. It's not being malicious. It genuinely thinks it's protecting you. Every weak habit you have isn't a character defect. It's not proof that you're lazy or broken. It's a neural pathway that's been strengthened through repetition until it became as automatic as breathing. When you grab your phone first thing in the morning, when you put off important work, when you choose the quick dopamine hit over the long-term win, you're not consciously deciding anything. You're being controlled by programs running below the surface of your awareness. The people who genuinely succeed at transforming their lives understand something fundamental that most people miss. You can't change your life without changing your mind. They don't rely on willpower or motivation because they know those are like batteries that eventually run out. Instead, they focus on reprogramming their subconscious to work with them instead of against them. They know that real lasting change happens at the neural level, not at the surface level where you're just trying to force different behaviors through gritted teeth. But here's what breaks my heart. Most people go through their entire existence never realizing they're being controlled by these invisible forces. They accept mediocrity as reality because nobody ever told them they have the power to rewrite the code. The first step to breaking free is recognizing this truth. You are not your thoughts, you're not your emotions, and you're definitely not your automatic behaviors. You're the person observing all of that. And as the observer, you have power, real power, but only if you're willing to go deeper than surface-level solutions and address the root cause, your subconscious programming. Chapter 2. Why everything you've tried has failed. Let me guess how you've approached habit change in the past. You identified something you wanted to stop doing. You tried to quit through sheer force of will. And when that didn't work, you blamed yourself and decided you just don't have enough discipline. Or maybe you went the opposite direction. You focused on building new positive habits by forcing yourself to do them every day until they felt natural. Both approaches? Fundamentally broken. And they're doomed to fail before you even start. The reason 92 out of 100 people fail to stick with their goals has absolutely nothing to do with willpower or discipline. It has everything to do with the fact that they're fighting the wrong battle. They're trying to change behaviors at the conscious level while completely ignoring the subconscious programming that's actually driving those behaviors in the first place. Here's what happens when you rely on willpower. Think of willpower like a phone battery. Every decision you make throughout the day drains it a little bit. By evening, when your willpower is running on 5%, your subconscious takes over and pulls you straight back into your old patterns. This is exactly why people can be disciplined all day long and then demolish a bag of chips at 10 p.m. It's why you can resist temptation for 3 weeks straight and then completely fall apart in 1 week moment. Most habit advice tells you to start small, be consistent, track your progress. And look, those strategies can help at the surface level, but they're missing the most critical piece of the puzzle, addressing the underlying beliefs and neural patterns that created the weak habit in the first place. You can try to build a habit of waking up early, but if your subconscious genuinely believes you're not a morning person, if it associates early mornings with suffering and discomfort, it will sabotage you every single time. You'll hit snooze. You'll rationalize. You'll create elaborate justifications for why today is different and you deserve more sleep. The self-help industry has sold everyone this lie that changing habits is just about changing behaviors. But behaviors are just symptoms. They're the visible manifestation of deeper mental programs. If you only focus on the behavior without addressing the underlying program, you're putting a Band-Aid on a broken bone. The habit might disappear temporarily, but it will always come back because the root cause is still there, untouched. Another huge mistake people make is trying to eliminate habits instead of replacing them. Here's a fundamental truth about how your brain works. You cannot simply delete a neural pathway. Once it's formed, it's there forever. The only way to overcome a weak habit is to create a stronger neural pathway that overrides it. This is why people who try to quit smoking by just stopping often fail miserably. But those who replace smoking with something like exercise have dramatically higher success rates. They're not leaving a void. They're filling that space with something new. Most people also make the mistake of trying to change everything at once. They get hit with a wave of motivation and decide they're going to wake up early, work out daily, eat perfectly, meditate, read more, and eliminate all their bad habits simultaneously. This overloads your system and depletes your willpower faster than you can imagine. Your brain can only handle so much change at once. When you overwhelm it, it defaults back to its original programming like a computer rebooting to factory settings. The biggest mistake, though? Fighting against your weak habits instead of understanding them. Every habit, even the ones you hate, exists because it's serving some function in your life. Maybe procrastination is protecting you from the fear of failing. Maybe scrolling social media is giving you temporary relief from loneliness or boredom. Maybe overeating is providing comfort when you're stressed. Until you understand what need your weak habit is meeting and find healthier ways to meet that need, you'll always be swimming upstream. Your brain isn't designed to eliminate habits. It's designed to automate behaviors to save energy. This is why trying to break habits through brute force rarely works long term. Instead of fighting against your brain's natural tendencies, you need to work with them. You need to understand how habits form at the neurological level and use that knowledge to strategically rewire your brain. The solution isn't more discipline. The solution isn't stronger willpower. The solution is understanding that lasting habit change requires reprogramming your subconscious mind. And that's exactly what we're going to do together. Chapter 3. How your brain creates mental prisons. Your brain is flying your life on autopilot. And most of the time, that autopilot is steering you straight into mediocrity. To break free from weak habits, you need to understand exactly how your brain creates and maintains these automated behaviors that keep you trapped. Every habit starts with a neural pathway. Imagine walking through an untouched meadow. The first time you walk through, you're pushing through tall grass, navigating around obstacles. It's hard work. It requires conscious effort. But if you walk the same path every single day, eventually you create a clear trail. The grass gets trampled down. The obstacles get cleared. Walking that path becomes effortless. Your brain works the exact same way. Every time you repeat a behavior, you strengthen the neural pathway associated with it. The scary part? Your brain doesn't care if it's a good habit or a bad habit. It simply automates whatever you repeat most frequently. If you check your phone every time you feel bored, your brain creates a strong highway that automatically triggers phone checking whenever boredom shows up. If you procrastinate every time you face something challenging, your brain automates procrastination as your default response to difficulty. But here's where it gets really disturbing. These neural pathways don't just control your behaviors. They control your thoughts and emotions too. When you've strengthened a particular pathway through repetition, it becomes your brain's preferred route. So when you encounter a trigger, your brain automatically sends signals down that pathway before your conscious mind even knows what's happening. This is why changing habits feels so impossibly difficult. You're not just fighting a behavior, you're fighting a deeply carved neural superhighway that your brain has been using for months or years. Your conscious mind might desperately want to change, but your subconscious is still running the old program. And since your subconscious is vastly more powerful, it usually wins. There's a part of your brain called the basal ganglia. It's constantly looking for ways to automate behaviors to conserve energy. Once it identifies a pattern, trigger, behavior, reward, it locks that pattern into your brain as an automatic routine. The problem is that once this happens, the behavior becomes largely unconscious. You stop actively choosing it. You just do it automatically. This is why you can drive to work without consciously thinking about every turn. Why you can brush your teeth while your mind is somewhere else entirely. And why you automatically reach for your phone without making a conscious decision to check it. But the basal ganglia doesn't just automate physical behaviors. It also automates thought patterns and emotional responses. If you've repeatedly responded to stress by feeling overwhelmed and helpless, your brain will automate that emotional response. If you've repeatedly told yourself you're not good enough, whenever you face a challenge, your brain will automate that thought pattern. Your brain reinforces these automated patterns through something called myelination. Every time you use a neural pathway, your brain wraps it in a substance called myelin, which makes signals travel faster and stronger. The more you use a pathway, the more myelinated it becomes, and the more automatic the behavior becomes. This is why breaking habits gets harder the longer you've had them. The terrifying reality is that most people are living completely on autopilot without even realizing it. They think they're making conscious choices, but they're actually just following the same neural programs on repeat. They wake up, check their phone, feel stressed, procrastinate, distract themselves, feel guilty, and repeat the same cycle the next day. Your subconscious processes 11 million bits of information per second. Your conscious mind, about 40 bits per second. That means 99.9% of your mental processing is happening below your awareness. Your subconscious is making decisions, filtering information, and directing your behavior based on programs that were installed years ago. This is why you can consciously want to change while simultaneously finding yourself doing the exact opposite. Your conscious mind is like a small person trying to steer a massive elephant. The elephant represents your subconscious, and it's infinitely more powerful. If the elephant wants to go in a different direction, the elephant wins every time. The good news? Neuroplasticity means your brain can form new pathways at any age. But here's what most people don't get. Creating new pathways isn't enough. You have to make them stronger than the old ones. This requires a strategic approach that goes way beyond just repeating new behaviors. You need to understand how to accelerate new pathway formation while simultaneously weakening the old ones. Chapter 4. The 3 lies that keep you stuck. There are 3 massive lies that society, the self-help industry, and even people who genuinely care about you have been telling you about habits. These aren't just minor misunderstandings. They're actively sabotaging your ability to create real, lasting change. As long as you believe these lies, you'll stay trapped in this endless cycle of temporary motivation followed by inevitable collapse back into your old patterns. Let's talk about the first lie. Changing habits is all about willpower and discipline. This lie has convinced millions of people that they're weak or lazy when they can't stick to new habits. But here's the truth that nobody wants to tell you. Willpower is like a muscle that gets exhausted with use. Every single decision you make throughout your day drains your willpower reserves. By the time evening rolls around and your willpower tank is empty, your old habits take over because they require zero conscious effort. Successful people don't have some superhuman amount of willpower that you're missing. They have better systems. They've figured out how to automate their success behaviors so they don't need to constantly rely on willpower to do the right things. They've structured their environment and routines so that good choices become the easy choices and bad choices become difficult ones. They understand something crucial. Willpower is an emergency measure, not a long-term strategy. It's like using a fire extinguisher. Sure, it works in the moment, but you can't base your entire fire safety plan on keeping an extinguisher nearby. You need to build a house that doesn't catch fire in the first place. The second lie is that you can eliminate bad habits by simply stopping them. This lie completely ignores how your brain actually works. Neural pathways once formed never disappear. They can go dormant, sure, they can get weaker, but they remain in your brain forever, ready to light up again when the right trigger appears. This is why someone can quit a habit for months, even years, and then suddenly find themselves right back where they started after one stressful week or one moment of weakness. The pathway was still there, just waiting. The only real way to overcome a bad habit is to replace it with a good habit that satisfies the same underlying need. If you try to eliminate a habit without replacing it, you're leaving a void, and nature abhors a vacuum. Your brain will eventually fill that emptiness with something else, often something worse than the original habit. This is why people who quit smoking often gain weight, why people who stop drinking sometimes become workaholics, why people who give up social media often replace it with equally mindless activities. The function that the old habit was serving didn't disappear just because you stopped the behavior. Every habit exists because it serves a purpose. Procrastination might be protecting you from the fear of failure or judgment. Social media scrolling might be providing relief from boredom or a sense of social connection you're craving. Overeating might be offering comfort during stressful times that you don't know how to process in healthier ways. Until you identify what function your bad habit is serving and find a healthier way to meet that need, you'll be fighting a battle you can't possibly win. It's like trying to bail water out of a boat while someone's still drilling holes in the bottom. The third lie is that small changes are enough to create transformation. The self-help industry loves to promote this idea that tiny changes lead to massive results. And look, consistency matters. But let's be real for a second. If your current habits have been reinforced for years or decades, making tiny adjustments is like trying to redirect a speeding freight train by gently pushing on one side. It's not going to work. Real transformation happens when you create enough force to actually break through your existing patterns. This means making changes that are significant enough to disrupt your current neural programming. It means creating new experiences that are so different from your current reality that they force your brain to form new pathways. The start small advice can actually keep you trapped in mediocrity because small changes don't generate enough momentum to overcome the gravitational pull of your existing habits. Small changes feel safe and comfortable, which is precisely why they don't work. Your brain only creates new neural pathways when it perceives that change is necessary for survival or that there's a significant reward at stake. Small, comfortable changes don't trigger that response. They just get absorbed into your existing patterns without creating real transformation. These three lies have created a culture where people are constantly trying and failing to change. They start with enthusiasm, make some progress, hit resistance from their old programming, and then blame themselves instead of recognizing they were following fundamentally flawed strategies. The truth is that changing habits isn't about being stronger or tougher. It's about being smarter. It's about understanding the science of behavior change and using that knowledge to work with your brain instead of against it. It's about recognizing that your current habits aren't character flaws. They're simply neural programs that can be updated with the right approach. Breaking free from these lies is your first step toward real transformation. Once you understand that willpower isn't the answer, that replacement beats elimination, and that significant change requires significant intervention, you can stop beating yourself up for past failures and start implementing strategies that actually work. Chapter 5. Becoming someone different. Every habit you have is a mirror reflecting your identity back at you. The reason you have certain habits isn't because you lack willpower or discipline. It's because those habits are perfectly aligned with how you see yourself deep down. If you see yourself as someone who's disorganized, you'll naturally have habits that create and maintain disorganization. If you see yourself as someone who lacks self-control, you'll develop habits that prove that belief true. Your habits are simply the external expression of your internal identity. This is the main reason most people fail to change their habits long term. They're trying to change their behaviors without changing their identity. They want to exercise regularly while still seeing themselves as a lazy person. They want to eat healthy while identifying as someone who has no willpower around food. They want to be productive while believing they're a procrastinator by nature. Your brain is specifically designed to keep your behaviors consistent with your identity. When your actions don't match who you believe you are, you experience this psychological tension called cognitive dissonance. It feels uncomfortable, unsettling, and your brain will always resolve this tension by pulling you back to behaviors that match your self-concept. This is why temporary motivation and willpower approaches always eventually fail. They're literally fighting against your fundamental sense of who you are. It's like trying to swim against a rip tide. You might make progress for a while, but eventually the current is going to win. The most powerful way to change your habits is to change your identity first. Instead of trying to act like a different person, you need to actually become a different person at the identity level. And no, this isn't about fake it till you make it, or pretending to be someone you're not. This is about systematically rewiring your self-concept through evidence-based identity transformation. Here's something liberating. Your identity isn't fixed. It's not carved in stone. It's simply a collection of beliefs you have about yourself. And beliefs can be changed. Every time you perform an action, you're casting a vote for the type of person you believe yourself to be. Every time you go to the gym, you're voting for the identity of being a fit person. Every time you choose a healthy meal, you're voting for the identity of being someone who values and takes care of their body. Every time you tackle hard work instead of procrastinating, you're voting for the identity of being a disciplined, action-oriented person. The key is starting with small actions that align with your desired identity, and gradually building up the evidence until your brain accepts this new identity as true. If you want to become someone who doesn't procrastinate, start by doing one small task immediately instead of putting it off. If you want to become someone who's organized, start by making your bed every morning. These actions might seem trivial, almost laughably small, but they're actually incredibly powerful identity-shifting tools. They're collecting evidence for your brain that says, "This is who I am now." Most people approach habits completely backwards. They focus on what they want to achieve instead of who they want to become. They say, "I want to lose 20 pounds," instead of, "I want to become someone who takes excellent care of their body." They say, "I want to read more books," instead of, "I want to become someone who values continuous learning and growth." When you focus on outcomes instead of identity, you're setting yourself up for failure because outcomes are temporary, but identity is permanent. You might lose those 20 pounds, but if you still identify as an overweight person, you'll gain them back. You might read more books for a few months, but if you don't identify as a reader, you'll stop. Identity-based change works because it aligns your conscious goals with your subconscious programming. When you truly see yourself as a disciplined person, discipline stops feeling like something you have to force yourself to do. It becomes something you naturally do because it's simply who you are. When you see yourself as someone who values their health, making healthy choices becomes automatic because unhealthy choices would contradict your identity. The fastest way to change your identity is through what I call evidence collection. Every single day, you need to collect evidence that supports your desired identity. This means consciously choosing actions, no matter how small, that are consistent with who you want to become. Every piece of evidence strengthens the neural pathways associated with your new identity and weakens the pathways associated with your old one. It's like building a court case. The more evidence you collect, the stronger your case becomes, until eventually the verdict is clear and undeniable. Your brain is constantly looking for evidence to confirm your beliefs about yourself. If you believe you're undisciplined, your brain will notice every single time you procrastinate and completely ignore every time you follow through on a commitment. If you believe you're someone who takes action, your brain will notice every time you do something productive and downplay the times you don't. This is why it's crucial to deliberately collect evidence of your desired identity. Keep a daily record of every action you take that's consistent with who you want to become. Celebrate these moments, no matter how small they seem. Your brain will start paying attention to this evidence and gradually shift your self-concept accordingly. The most successful people understand that they're not trying to build habits. They're trying to reinforce identity. They don't say, "I'm trying to exercise more." They say, "I'm the type of person who takes care of their body." They don't say, "I'm trying to be more productive." They say, "I'm the type of person who makes things happen." This subtle shift in language represents a fundamental shift in approach that makes all the difference. When your identity changes, your habits change automatically. You don't have to force yourself to act differently because acting differently becomes natural, effortless. This is the difference between temporary behavior change and permanent transformation. Identity change creates habits that stick because they're not something you do. They're expressions of who you are. Chapter 6. Designing your environment for success. Your environment is programming your brain every single moment of every single day. And most people have absolutely no idea this is happening. While you're focused on building willpower and discipline, your environment is working against you in the background, triggering weak habits and making failure almost inevitable. The most successful people understand something that average people completely miss. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your environment. Every single thing in your physical space is either reinforcing your desired identity or undermining it. Every app on your phone, every item on your desk, every snack in your kitchen, every piece of furniture in your room, all of it is sending signals to your subconscious about who you are and what behaviors are normal for you. Your brain is constantly scanning your environment for cues about how to behave. And these environmental triggers are far more powerful than your conscious intentions could ever be. Here's what most people don't understand. Your environment doesn't just influence your behavior. It literally rewires your brain. Every time you encounter an environmental cue that triggers a habit, you strengthen the neural pathway between that cue and the behavior. If your phone is always visible on your desk, your brain strengthens the connection between seeing your phone and checking it. If junk food is sitting out on your kitchen counter, your brain strengthens the connection between being in the kitchen and eating unhealthy food. If your TV is the first thing you see when you walk into your living room, your brain strengthens the connection between coming home and watching TV. The people who successfully eliminate weak habits don't rely on willpower to resist temptation. They design their environment so that temptation doesn't exist in the first place. They understand that every decision they have to make throughout the day depletes their mental energy. So they minimize the number of decisions required by making their environment work for them instead of against them. Environmental design works because it leverages your brain's natural tendency to automate behaviors. Instead of fighting against this automation, you're working with it by ensuring that the automated behaviors serve your goals rather than sabotage them. The first step is conducting what I call an environmental audit. You need to systematically examine every aspect of your physical space and identify all the cues that are triggering weak habits. Look at your bedroom, your workspace, your kitchen, your car, your phone. What behaviors are these environments encouraging? What habits are they making easier? What temptations are they presenting? Most people's environments are perfectly designed for failure without them realizing it. They charge their phone next to their bed, ensuring that checking social media is the first and last thing they do each day. They keep junk food visible in their kitchen, making unhealthy eating the path of least resistance. They have their workspace cluttered with distractions, making focus almost impossible. They've created environments that make weak habits inevitable and strong habits nearly impossible. The solution is to reverse engineer your environment based on the identity you want to embody. If you want to become someone who reads regularly, make books visible and accessible while making distractions like TV and phone less prominent. If you want to become someone who exercises consistently, lay out your workout clothes the night before and remove any barriers to exercise. If you want to become someone who eats healthy, stock your kitchen with nutritious foods and remove processed foods from easy reach. Environmental reprogramming works on multiple levels simultaneously. It reduces friction for good habits while increasing friction for bad habits. It provides visual reminders of your desired identity throughout the day. It eliminates decision fatigue by making the right choice, the obvious choice. It leverages social proof by surrounding yourself with items and spaces that reflect who you want to become. Your phone deserves special attention because it's probably the most psychologically manipulative device in your environment. Social media companies have spent billions of dollars studying how to make their apps as addictive as possible. They use variable reward schedules, social validation mechanisms, and fear of missing out triggers to keep you checking constantly. Your phone is literally designed to hijack your attention and create compulsive checking behaviors. The solution isn't to rely on willpower to resist your phone. The solution is to strategically design your phone environment to support your goals. Remove social media apps entirely or move them to hard-to-reach folders. Turn off all non-essential notifications. Use grayscale mode to make your phone less visually appealing. Create friction for distracting apps by using app timers and restrictions. Make it harder to access the things that waste your time and easier to access the things that serve your growth. Your physical workspace has an enormous impact on your productivity and focus. A cluttered, disorganized workspace creates mental clutter and makes deep work almost impossible. Your brain interprets clutter as unfinished tasks, which creates background stress and reduces cognitive performance. A clean, organized workspace signals to your brain that you're someone who values focus and gets things done. The lighting, temperature, and noise levels in your environment also dramatically affect your brain function and behavior patterns. Poor lighting causes fatigue and reduces motivation. Excessive noise increases stress hormones and impairs concentration. Uncomfortable temperatures drain mental energy and make you more likely to choose easy, comfortable behaviors over challenging ones. Environmental design also includes the digital environments you inhabit, the websites you visit, the content you consume, the people you follow on social media, the videos you watch. All of it is programming your brain and shaping your beliefs about what's possible. If you're constantly consuming content that reinforces limiting beliefs or promotes weak habits, you're essentially programming yourself for failure without even realizing it. The most powerful environmental change you can make is surrounding yourself with people who embody the identity you want to develop. Your social environment is the strongest environmental factor influencing your behavior. If you spend time with people who have weak habits, those habits will seem normal and acceptable to your brain. If you spend time with people who have strong habits, those habits will become your new normal. Your brain literally can't tell the difference between what you do and what you see others around you doing. Remember this: your environment is never neutral. It's either helping you become who you want to be or preventing you from becoming who you want to be. There is no middle ground. Every environmental cue is either a vote for your desired identity or a vote against it. The people who achieve lasting transformation understand that changing their environment isn't optional. It's essential. It's the foundation that everything else is built on. Chapter 7. Rewiring your brain's automatic responses. Your weak habits exist as massive highways in your brain, and trying to eliminate them through willpower alone is like trying to stop a speeding train with your bare hands. It's not going to happen. The only way to overcome a deeply ingrained habit is to build a stronger neural pathway that overrides it. This isn't about suppressing your old habits or fighting against them with brute force. This is about strategically replacing them with new neural programs that actually serve your goals. Understanding this principle is going to completely transform how you approach habit change. Most people try to eliminate habits by simply stopping the behavior, but this leaves the underlying neural pathway completely intact, just sitting there, ready to reactivate at the first sign of stress or weakness. Real habit change requires building new pathways that are stronger, more automatic, and more rewarding than the old ones. Every habit follows what neuroscientists call the habit loop. Cue, routine, reward. The cue is the trigger that initiates the habit. The routine is the behavior itself. And the reward is the benefit your brain receives from completing the routine. Your brain automates this loop to conserve energy, which is why habits become unconscious over time. To replace a weak habit, you need to identify each component of this loop and systematically reprogram it. The cue is the environmental or internal trigger that starts the habit sequence. This could be a specific time of day, a particular location, an emotional state, the presence of other people, or an action that immediately precedes your habit. Your brain has learned to associate this cue with the routine that follows, creating an automatic trigger response pattern. Identifying your habit cues requires careful observation and brutal honesty with yourself. Most people are completely unconscious of their habit cues, which is why they feel like their weak habits just happen automatically without any warning. But every habit has a cue, and once you identify it, you can begin to disrupt the automatic pattern. Start paying close attention to what happens immediately before you engage in a weak habit. What were you thinking about? How were you feeling? Where were you? What time was it? Who was around you? These patterns will reveal your triggers. The routine is the behavior itself, and this is what most people focus on when trying to change habits. But the routine is just the visible symptom of a deeper neural program. Trying to change the routine without addressing the cue and reward is like trying to change the direction of a river without changing the landscape that guides its flow. The routine will always revert to its original pattern unless you change the underlying structure. The reward is what your brain gets from completing the habit. And this is the most misunderstood component of habit change. The reward isn't always obvious or logical. The reward for checking social media might not actually be entertainment. It might be social connection or relief from boredom or loneliness. The reward for procrastinating might not be laziness. It might be protection from the fear of failure or judgment. Every weak habit exists because it provides some type of reward, even if that reward is ultimately harmful or counterproductive. Your brain doesn't judge whether rewards are good or bad for your long-term success. It simply seeks to repeat behaviors that provide immediate neurochemical satisfaction. Understanding what reward your weak habit is providing is absolutely crucial for finding a healthier replacement. You need to dig deep and figure out what your brain is actually getting from this behavior. The neural pathway replacement system works by keeping the same cue and reward while changing the routine. This leverages your brain's existing neural infrastructure while redirecting it toward a more beneficial behavior. For example, if your cue is feeling stressed and your current routine is scrolling social media for the reward of distraction and mental escape, you could replace the routine with deep breathing exercises, a quick walk, or calling a friend, while maintaining the same cue and achieving a similar or better reward. This approach works brilliantly because it doesn't require building entirely new neural pathways from scratch. Instead, it modifies existing pathways, which is much faster and more sustainable. Your brain already knows when to look for the reward, so you're simply teaching it a new way to obtain that reward. Implementation requires systematic experimentation. You need to test different replacement routines to find one that provides a similar or better reward than your weak habit. This might take several attempts, and you need to be patient with the process. Your brain will naturally resist change and try to revert to the familiar routine, especially during the first few weeks when the new pathway is still weak and underdeveloped. The key to accelerating neural pathway replacement is increasing the reward value of your new routine. If your replacement habit provides a bigger or more satisfying reward than your weak habit, your brain will naturally prefer it over time. This might mean gamifying your new habit, tracking your progress visually, celebrating small wins loudly, or linking it to a bigger sense of purpose and identity. Repetition is absolutely crucial for strengthening new neural pathways. But not all repetition is created equal. Focused, intentional repetition is vastly more effective than mindless repetition. Every time you consciously choose your new routine instead of your old one, especially during moments when you feel that urge for your weak habit, you're powerfully strengthening the new pathway. The most important factor in pathway replacement is consistency during the formation period. Research shows that it takes an average of 66 days to form a new automatic habit, though this can vary significantly depending on the complexity of the behavior and the strength of the existing pathway you're trying to replace. During this critical formation period, any return to the old habit weakens your new pathway and extends the time required for automation. This is why consistency matters so much in the beginning. You're literally building brain infrastructure, and every day of practice adds another layer of insulation to that pathway. Environmental modification dramatically accelerates neural pathway replacement. By changing the environmental cues that trigger your weak habits, you reduce the activation of old pathways while promoting the activation of new ones. This is why it's often easier to build new habits in completely new environments, rather than trying to change existing habits in the same environment where they were formed. The ultimate goal is to make your new habit more automatic than your old habit. When this happens, you'll find yourself naturally choosing the beneficial behavior without conscious effort or decision-making. Your new neural pathway will become the default route your brain takes when encountering the trigger cue, and your weak habit will fade into dormancy, still there, but no longer active. Chapter 8. The Silent Destruction of Small Decisions. While you're focused on the obvious big problems in your life, small weak habits are silently compounding in the background, creating massive destruction that you won't see until it's too late. Most people dramatically underestimate the long-term impact of their daily choices because the consequences aren't immediately visible. But compound effects work both ways. Just as small positive actions compound into extraordinary results over time, small negative actions compound into extraordinary failure. The compound destruction protocol reveals how seemingly insignificant weak habits accumulate to create the life you don't want. Every time you choose immediate gratification over long-term success, every time you avoid discomfort instead of embracing growth, every time you distract yourself instead of facing reality, you're not just making an isolated bad decision. You're casting a vote for a version of yourself that you'll eventually have to live with. Here's what makes compound destruction so dangerous. It operates below the threshold of immediate consequence. Checking your phone once doesn't ruin your focus. Skipping exercise for one day doesn't destroy your health. Procrastinating on one important task doesn't derail your career. But these seemingly harmless choices create neural patterns that become increasingly automatic and destructive over time. Your brain doesn't evaluate the long-term consequences of your daily choices. It only responds to immediate feedback. This evolutionary programming worked perfectly in ancestral environments where most consequences were immediate and obvious. But in today's world, the most important consequences are delayed and invisible. Your brain's short-term focus becomes your biggest enemy. In a world where success requires long-term thinking, consider the true cost of common weak habits over time. Spending just 30 minutes per day on mindless social media scrolling equals 182 hours per year. That's more than 4 full work weeks of lost time. Over a decade, that's nearly a full year of your life consumed by meaningless content. And that's just the time cost. It doesn't include the attention residue, the mood impacts, the comparison trap, the anxiety, or the cognitive fragmentation that carries over into other activities and relationships. The procrastination habit compounds into far more than just delayed tasks. Every time you procrastinate, you're training your brain that discomfort is to be avoided rather than embraced. You're strengthening neural pathways associated with avoidance and weakness, while weakening pathways associated with discipline and courage. Over time, this programming spreads beyond specific tasks to become a general approach to life, where you consistently choose comfort over challenge, safety over growth, the familiar over the unknown. Weak habits compound because they reinforce limiting beliefs about yourself. Every time you give in to a weak habit, you're providing evidence to your subconscious that you lack discipline, that you can't be trusted to follow through on commitments, and that you're the type of person who chooses short-term pleasure over long-term success. These beliefs then influence future decisions, creating a downward spiral of increasingly self-defeating behavior. You start to believe your own story about who you are, and that story becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. The attention destruction caused by weak habits might be the most devastating compound effect of all. In a world where focus is the ultimate competitive advantage, habits that fragment your attention are absolutely killing your potential. The constant task switching caused by checking emails, notifications, and social media doesn't just waste time. It literally rewires your brain for distraction and makes deep work progressively more difficult. Research shows that it takes an average of 23 minutes to fully refocus after an interruption. If you check your phone 10 times during a workday, you're ensuring that you never achieve the deep focus required for high-level thinking and creative problem-solving. Over time, your brain loses the ability to sustain attention on challenging tasks, making you increasingly dependent on external stimulation and instant gratification. Weak habits also compound through what psychologists call ego depletion. Every time you resist a temptation or make a difficult choice, you exhaust your willpower reserves. But weak habits force you to resist the same temptations over and over again, constantly draining your mental energy and leaving you with less capacity for important decisions and creative work. The social compound effects of weak habits are equally devastating. Other people unconsciously mirror the behaviors they observe, so your weak habits influence the people around you to develop similar patterns. If you're constantly distracted by your phone, the people you spend time with will become more distracted. If you consistently choose comfort over challenge, you'll attract and encourage similar attitudes in others, creating an entire social circle that reinforces mediocrity. Weak habits compound financially through what economists call opportunity cost. Every hour you spend on weak habits is an hour you could have spent developing valuable skills, building meaningful relationships, creating value in the world, or improving your health and well-being. The money you don't earn, save, or invest because of weak habits compounds over time into massive differences in wealth and financial security. The skills you don't develop because you're distracted compound into massive differences in career opportunities and earning potential. Your health is perhaps the most dramatic example of compound destruction. Poor eating habits, sedentary behavior, inadequate sleep, and chronic stress might not kill you tomorrow, but they're systematically breaking down your body's systems in ways that will dramatically impact your quality of life decades from now. The energy, vitality, and mental clarity you lose to weak habits compounds into a completely different life trajectory. The difference between someone who takes care of their body and someone who doesn't becomes more dramatic with each passing year. The emotional compound effects are equally devastating. Weak habits often provide temporary relief from negative emotions, but they never address the underlying causes of those emotions. Over time, this avoidance strategy trains your brain to be increasingly intolerant of discomfort and less capable of emotional regulation. You become progressively more dependent on external sources of comfort and less able to find satisfaction in meaningful but challenging activities. Your emotional range narrows. Your resilience weakens. Your capacity for delayed gratification diminishes. Understanding compound destruction changes how you evaluate your daily choices. Instead of asking whether a choice will hurt you today, you start asking whether it's moving you toward or away from the person you want to become. You begin to see that every choice is either building the life you want or building the life you don't want. There is no neutral ground. The people who achieve extraordinary success understand that success isn't about making perfect choices. It's about consistently making slightly better choices that compound over time. They understand that their current reality is the compound result of thousands of small decisions made over years, and their future reality will be determined by the small decisions they make starting today. Breaking free from compound destruction requires shifting from short-term thinking to long-term thinking. You need to develop the ability to feel the future consequences of your present choices, even when those consequences aren't immediately visible. This requires training your brain to value delayed gratification over immediate pleasure and to see temporary discomfort as an investment in future success. Chapter 9. Building an Unbreakable Mind. Mental toughness isn't about being emotionally numb or suppressing your feelings. Mental toughness is about developing the psychological resilience to consistently choose long-term success over short-term comfort, even when everything inside you is screaming for the easy path. It's about building a mind that automatically rejects weak habits, because weakness has become fundamentally incompatible with your core identity. Most people completely misunderstand mental toughness. They think it's about grinding through pain or forcing yourself to do things you hate. But true mental toughness is about developing such a strong sense of purpose and identity that difficult choices become easy choices. When you have real mental toughness, you don't have to force yourself to avoid weak habits. You naturally avoid them because they're inconsistent with who you are. The choice becomes obvious rather than difficult. Your current level of mental toughness was shaped by years of either avoiding discomfort or embracing it. Every time you chose the easy path when a hard path was available, you trained your brain that discomfort is something to be avoided at all costs. Every time you quit when things got difficult, you reinforced neural pathways associated with giving up. Your brain learned that you're the type of person who chooses comfort over growth. But here's the liberating truth. Mental toughness is not a fixed trait you're born with or without. It's a skill that can be developed through deliberate practice. Just like physical strength is built by progressively challenging your muscles, mental strength is built by progressively challenging your psychological comfort zone. Every time you choose discomfort over comfort, you're building mental muscle that makes future difficult choices easier. You're proving to your brain that you can handle more than it thinks you can. The foundation of mental toughness is learning to reframe your relationship with discomfort. Most people see discomfort as a signal that something is wrong and needs to be avoided. Mentally tough people see discomfort as a signal that growth is happening and needs to be embraced. They understand that all meaningful progress requires moving through discomfort, and they've trained themselves to associate temporary discomfort with long-term success. This reframing process literally rewires your brain's response to challenging situations. Instead of activating fight or flight responses when you encounter difficulty, your brain begins to activate growth and learning responses. Stress hormones like cortisol are replaced with growth hormones that actually enhance performance and resilience. Mental toughness training requires systematically exposing yourself to controlled discomfort in order to expand your tolerance for stress and challenge. This isn't about punishing yourself or creating unnecessary suffering. It's about strategically building your capacity to handle the inevitable difficulties that come with pursuing meaningful goals. The most effective mental toughness training involves 3 types of challenges. Physical challenges that push your body beyond its comfort zone. Cognitive challenges that force your brain to work harder than it wants to. And emotional challenges that require you to act despite fear or anxiety. Each type of challenge strengthens different aspects of mental resilience, and together they create a comprehensive foundation of psychological strength. Physical challenges are the most straightforward because they provide immediate feedback about your mental state. Cold exposure, intense exercise, intermittent fasting, or other forms of controlled physical stress teach your brain that you can handle discomfort without breaking. Every time you stay in a cold shower longer than you want to, every time you push through that last set at the gym, every time you resist the urge to quit when your body is screaming at you, you're proving to your subconscious that you're stronger than your immediate impulses. Cognitive challenges involve forcing your brain to focus despite distractions, solve difficult problems despite frustration, or learn complex skills despite confusion. Reading challenging books, solving complex puzzles, learning new languages, or mastering difficult skills all build cognitive resilience. Your brain learns that temporary confusion and struggle are normal parts of growth, rather than signals to quit. You develop the ability to sit with not knowing, to tolerate the discomfort of being a beginner, to push through mental fatigue without giving up. Emotional challenges require acting according to your values despite fear, anxiety, or social pressure. This might mean having difficult conversations you've been avoiding, taking calculated risks that scare you, standing up for your beliefs even when it's unpopular, or pursuing goals that others don't understand. Every time you act courageously despite emotional discomfort, you strengthen your emotional resilience and expand your capacity for future challenges. You prove to yourself that feelings don't have to control your actions. The key to effective mental toughness training is progressive overload, the same principle used in physical training. You start with challenges that are difficult but manageable, and gradually increase the intensity as your mental capacity grows. If you try to take on challenges that are too far beyond your current capacity, you'll overwhelm your nervous system and potentially create trauma rather than growth. But if you stay within your comfort zone, you won't grow at all. The sweet spot is just outside your comfort zone, challenging enough to stretch you, but not so overwhelming that you break. Mental toughness also requires developing what psychologists call distress tolerance, the ability to experience negative emotions without immediately trying to escape or numb them. Most weak habits are escape mechanisms that people use to avoid uncomfortable emotions like boredom, anxiety, loneliness, or frustration. When you develop distress tolerance, you no longer need these escape mechanisms because you can sit with discomfort without being overwhelmed by it. You learn that emotions are temporary experiences that arise and pass away, not permanent aspects of your identity that must be acted upon. Meditation and mindfulness practices are powerful tools for building distress tolerance because they train your brain to observe thoughts and emotions without immediately reacting to them. You learn to create space between stimulus and response, between feeling and action. Self-talk is a critical component of mental toughness because the way you interpret challenges determines how you respond to them. Mentally tough people have trained themselves to use empowering self-talk that reframes challenges as opportunities and setbacks as learning experiences. They've eliminated victim language and excuse-making from their internal dialogue. Instead of, "I can't," they say, "I'm learning how to." Instead of, "This is too hard," they say, "This is exactly what I need to grow." Instead of, "I failed," they say, "I discovered what doesn't work." The stories you tell yourself about your capabilities and potential have enormous power over your behavior. If you tell yourself that you're naturally weak or undisciplined, you'll unconsciously look for evidence to confirm this belief. If you tell yourself that you're becoming stronger and more capable every day, you'll unconsciously look for evidence to confirm that belief instead. Mental toughness training also involves systematically eliminating sources of mental weakness from your life. This includes reducing exposure to negative media that makes you anxious or fearful, avoiding people who reinforce limiting beliefs or celebrate mediocrity, and eliminating activities that drain your mental energy without providing meaningful value. You need to protect your mental environment just as carefully as you protect your physical environment. What you consume mentally becomes part of your internal landscape. The ultimate goal of mental toughness training is developing what psychologists call anti-fragility, the ability to become stronger as a result of stress and challenges rather than being weakened by them. When you reach this level, setbacks become opportunities for growth. Criticism becomes fuel for improvement. Obstacles become stepping stones to greater success. You stop seeing challenges as threats to be avoided and start seeing them as opportunities to prove your strength and develop new capabilities. This mindset shift transforms your entire relationship with difficulty and makes continuous growth inevitable. Chapter 10. The 90-Day Brain Transformation Blueprint. Everything you've learned up to this point has been building toward this moment, the complete 90-day system that will eliminate your weak habits at the neurological level and replace them with automatic success behaviors. This isn't another temporary motivation program that fades after a few weeks. This is a comprehensive protocol designed to rewire your brain based on cutting-edge neuroscience research and battle-tested by thousands of people who have successfully transformed their lives. The 90-day time frame isn't random or arbitrary. Neuroscience research shows that it takes approximately 66 to 90 days of consistent practice to fully automate a new behavior and create lasting changes in brain structure. This is the minimum amount of time required for new neural pathways to become stronger than old ones, and for new behaviors to become truly automatic rather than consciously controlled. The system is divided into 3 30-day phases, each designed to build upon the previous phase and address different aspects of neural reprogramming. Phase 1 focuses on disrupting old patterns and creating initial momentum. Phase 2 focuses on building new neural pathways and strengthening your desired identity. Phase 3 focuses on automation and long-term sustainability. Let's talk about Phase 1. During these first 30 days, your primary goal is pattern disruption. You're going to systematically identify and interrupt the automatic habit loops that have been controlling your behavior. This phase requires the most conscious effort and willpower because you're actively fighting against deeply ingrained patterns. But it becomes progressively easier as you weaken old neural pathways and begin building new ones. Think of it like breaking up concrete. The first few strikes are the hardest, but once you create some cracks, the whole thing starts to crumble more easily. Start by selecting one primary weak habit, 2 eliminate, and one primary strong habit to install. Trying to change multiple habits simultaneously will overwhelm your nervous system and dramatically reduce your chances of success. Your brain can only handle so much change at once. Choose the weak habit that's having the biggest negative impact on your life and the strong habit that will have the biggest positive impact. Everything else can wait until these habits are fully automated. This is about strategic focus, not trying to fix everything at once. Document everything during phase 1. Keep a detailed habit journal that tracks your triggers, emotions, circumstances, and responses every time you engage in either your weak habit or your strong habit. This data collection serves multiple crucial purposes. It increases your awareness of unconscious patterns that have been running on autopilot. It provides concrete evidence of your progress that you can look back on during difficult moments. And it helps you identify the specific environmental and emotional triggers that need to be addressed. Environmental modification is absolutely crucial during phase 1. You need to systematically remove or modify every environmental cue that triggers your weak habit while simultaneously adding environmental cues that support your strong habit. This might mean completely rearranging your physical space, changing your daily routine, avoiding certain locations or people temporarily, or drastically modifying your digital environment. Whatever it takes to break the automatic connection between cue and response. The identity shift begins immediately in phase 1. Start using language that reflects your desired identity rather than your current reality. Instead of saying, "I'm trying to quit," say, "I'm not someone who does this anymore." Instead of saying, "I'm working on being more disciplined," say, "I'm a disciplined person." Your subconscious mind pays incredibly close attention to the language you use about yourself and begins to adjust your behavior to match your self-description. This might feel awkward at first, like you're lying to yourself, but you're not lying. You're declaring your intention and giving your brain a new identity to grow into. Phase 2 is about building and strengthening new neural pathways through deliberate practice and strategic repetition. By this point, you should have significantly weakened your old habit patterns and begun to establish new ones. Now you're going to accelerate the formation of new pathways through focused techniques. Stack your new habit with existing strong habits to leverage neural infrastructure that's already automated. If you want to build a reading habit, attach it to your existing morning coffee routine. If you want to build an exercise habit, attach it to your existing shower routine. This technique, called habit stacking, makes new behaviors much easier to remember and implement because you're piggybacking on neural pathways that already exist and fire automatically. Increase the reward value of your new habit through conscious celebration and visible tracking. Every single time you successfully choose your strong habit over your weak habit, consciously acknowledge this success and allow yourself to feel genuinely proud of your progress. Your brain needs to associate your new behavior with positive emotions in order to prefer it over your old behavior. This isn't about being cheesy or overly enthusiastic. It's about giving your brain the neurochemical rewards it needs to reinforce the new pathway. Implement accountability systems during Phase 2. Share your goal with someone you genuinely respect and don't want to disappoint. Join a community of people working on similar changes. Hire a coach who will hold you accountable for your commitments. External accountability provides additional motivation when your internal motivation wavers, and it helps you maintain consistency during those challenging periods when you'd normally give up. Phase 3 is about automation and long-term sustainability. By this point, your new habit should feel increasingly natural and your old habit should feel increasingly foreign. Your goal now is to make your new behavior so automatic that it requires virtually no conscious effort or decision-making. Test your automation by intentionally introducing controlled stress and challenges. Habits that only work when conditions are perfect aren't truly automated. Your new behaviors need to be resilient enough to survive difficult days, stressful periods, and unexpected circumstances. Deliberately create challenging conditions to strengthen your new neural pathways under pressure. Try maintaining your habit when you're tired, stressed, or traveling. See if it holds up when your routine gets disrupted. This stress testing reveals any weak points in your automation. Plan for potential relapses and develop specific recovery protocols. Even with perfect execution, you may occasionally slip back into old patterns, especially during periods of extreme stress or major life changes. Having a predetermined plan for quickly returning to your new habits prevents temporary setbacks from becoming permanent reversals. Know exactly what you'll do if you miss a day. Have a clear protocol for getting back on track immediately rather than spiraling into guilt and giving up entirely. Expand your success to additional habits only after your primary habit is fully automated. Once your new behavior requires no conscious effort and feels completely natural, like brushing your teeth, you can begin working on the next most important habit change. This sequential approach is vastly more effective than trying to change everything at once. You're building sustainable transformation, not temporary motivation. The 90-day challenge requires complete commitment and unwavering consistency. Missing even a single day during the formation period significantly extends the time required for automation and increases the likelihood of failure. Your brain needs constant reinforcement to build new pathways stronger than old ones. Think of it like building a bridge. If you stop construction halfway through, the whole structure becomes unstable. But if you maintain consistent progress, eventually you reach a tipping point where the bridge can support itself. Success metrics should focus on consistency rather than perfection. You're not trying to perform your new habit perfectly every single time. You're trying to perform it consistently enough to create automation. Track your consistency percentage and celebrate maintaining streaks rather than obsessing over how well you executed the habit on any given day. An imperfect action repeated consistently beats a perfect action done occasionally. The compound effects become clearly visible around day 60, when your new neural pathways are strong enough to feel natural, and your old pathways are weak enough to feel foreign. This is when the transformation shifts from effortful to effortless, from conscious choice to automatic behavior. By day 90, your new habit should feel like an essential part of who you are rather than something you have to remember to do. It should feel weird not to do it, the same way it would feel weird to leave the house without getting dressed. Chapter 11. Advanced Strategies for Accelerated Change. You now understand the fundamentals of neural reprogramming, but if you want to accelerate your transformation beyond what 99% of people achieve, you need to implement advanced neuroplasticity techniques that most people never discover. These are the cutting-edge strategies used by elite performers who need to rewire their brains faster and more completely than the average person. They're not necessary for success, but they can dramatically speed up the process. The first advanced technique is neural priming, which involves strategically preparing your brain for new habit formation before you even attempt the behavior. Your brain's neuroplasticity isn't constant throughout the day. It fluctuates based on your mental state, hormone levels, and recent activities. By understanding these fluctuations, you can time your habit practice during periods of maximum brain adaptability, when your neural pathways are most receptive to change. Research shows that neuroplasticity is highest immediately after physical exercise, during the first hour after waking when your brain is fresh, and during periods of novel learning when your brain is already in growth mode. Your brain releases something called brain-derived neurotrophic factor during these times, which acts like fertilizer for new neural pathway formation. Elite habit builders schedule their most important habit practice during these windows of enhanced neuroplasticity. The second advanced technique is sensory stacking, which involves engaging multiple senses during habit practice to create stronger and more durable neural pathways. Most people only engage one or two senses when building habits, but your brain forms much stronger memories and automated behaviors when multiple sensory channels are activated simultaneously. For example, if you're building a reading habit, don't just read silently in the same chair every day. Read aloud while walking in a specific, beautiful location with particular background music playing and a distinctive scent like coffee or essential oils in the air. This creates a multi-sensory neural network that makes the habit much easier to trigger and much more resistant to extinction. Your brain literally has multiple pathways to access the same behavior pattern, making it more robust. Emotional amplification is perhaps the most powerful neuroplasticity hack available, and most people completely ignore it. Emotions aren't just feelings. They're neural chemicals that determine how strongly memories are encoded and how quickly behaviors become automatic. Habits formed during states of intense emotion become automated much faster than habits formed in neutral emotional states. This is why you remember exactly where you were during significant emotional events, but you can't remember what you had for lunch 3 days ago. This means you need to intentionally create emotional intensity around your new habits. Connect your habit to your deepest values and most important life goals. Visualize the long-term consequences of success and failure with vivid emotional detail. Create rituals and celebrations that generate genuine positive emotions when you complete your habit. Your brain will prioritize behaviors that are emotionally significant and largely ignore behaviors that feel emotionally neutral. The third technique is cognitive load manipulation. Your brain's ability to form new habits is inversely related to the amount of mental processing it's doing simultaneously. When your cognitive load is high, when you're mentally exhausted or overwhelmed, your brain defaults to existing automated patterns because they require less energy. When your cognitive load is low, when your mental energy is fresh and you have bandwidth available, your brain is more open to forming new patterns. This is why it's dramatically easier to build new habits early in the morning when your mental energy is at its peak, rather than late at night when your brain is exhausted from a full day of decisions. It's also why simplifying your environment and reducing decision fatigue during habit formation periods massively improves success rates. Elite performers systematically reduce cognitive load during habit formation periods to maximize neuroplasticity. They eliminate unnecessary decisions, simplify their environment, and protect their mental energy, specifically for habit development. Temporal clustering is an advanced technique that involves practicing your new habit multiple times in short bursts throughout the day, rather than once for a longer duration. Instead of doing one 30-minute workout, you might do 3 10-minute movement sessions spread throughout the day. This creates more opportunities for neural reinforcement and faster pathway development. The spacing effect in neuroscience shows that distributed practice is more effective than massed practice for creating lasting neural changes. Your brain needs time to consolidate new patterns between practice sessions, and multiple shorter sessions provide more consolidation opportunities than single longer sessions. Each practice session creates a new wave of neural reinforcement. Interference pattern disruption involves deliberately practicing your new habit in different contexts, locations, and circumstances to create robust neural pathways that can't be disrupted by environmental changes. Most people practice habits in the same exact location and context every day, which creates context-dependent learning that breaks down when circumstances change. You build your morning routine at home, but then it completely falls apart when you travel. Elite habit builders deliberately vary the conditions under which they practice their habits. They practice their morning routine in different locations, at slightly different times, and under different circumstances. This creates context-independent neural pathways that are much more resilient and adaptable. Mirror neuron activation involves practicing your habit while observing others who have already mastered similar behaviors. Mirror neurons are fascinating. They fire both when you perform an action and when you observe others performing the same action. This neural mirroring accelerates learning and habit formation by activating the neural pathways associated with the behavior even when you're not actively practicing. It's like getting practice repetitions without actually doing the physical practice. Watch videos of people who have mastered the habits you want to develop. Spend time with people who naturally embody the behaviors you're trying to automate. Your mirror neurons will fire and strengthen the neural pathways associated with these behaviors, making them easier to execute when you practice them yourself. The final advanced technique is neural pathway competition, which involves deliberately practicing competing behaviors to strengthen your desired neural pathway through contrast and choice. Instead of just practicing your new habit, you also practice consciously choosing your new habit over your old habit in simulated scenarios. For example, if you're eliminating a social media habit, practice pulling out your phone and then deliberately choosing to put it away without checking it. This creates a stronger neural pathway for impulse control because your brain is actively choosing the new behavior over the old one rather than just avoiding the trigger situation entirely. You're strengthening the choice mechanism itself. These advanced techniques require more sophistication and planning than basic habit formation strategies, but they can reduce the time required for automation from 90 days to as little as 30 days for simpler habits. They're particularly valuable for people who need to make rapid changes due to career demands, health requirements, or major life transitions, where you don't have the luxury of a slow, gradual approach. The key to implementing advanced neuroplasticity techniques is systematic experimentation. Try different combinations of techniques to find what works best for your specific brain and lifestyle. Track your progress carefully and adjust your approach based on actual results rather than assumptions. Elite performance requires elite strategies, and these techniques will put you in the top 1% of people who successfully transform their habits and their lives. Chapter 12. Navigating the Mental Warfare of Change. Your brain will fight against your attempts to eliminate weak habits with the intensity of a cornered animal fighting for survival. This resistance isn't a character flaw or lack of motivation on your part. It's a completely predictable neurobiological response that you can anticipate, understand, and systematically overcome. The people who successfully transform their habits aren't the ones who experience less resistance. They're the ones who have developed specific protocols for navigating resistance when it inevitably appears. And trust me, it will appear. Your brain's resistance to change serves an evolutionary purpose that made perfect sense for our ancestors. It protected them from dangerous behaviors that could threaten survival. In a world where most changes were potentially life-threatening, resistance to change was a valuable survival mechanism. But in today's world, this same protective mechanism prevents you from making beneficial changes that could dramatically improve your life. Your brain can't tell the difference between a life-threatening change and a life-enhancing change. It just knows that change feels dangerous. The resistance will manifest in multiple forms, and you need to be prepared for all of them. Emotional resistance appears as anxiety, fear, frustration, or overwhelming feelings when you try to practice new habits. Cognitive resistance appears as rationalization, excuse-making, and elaborate mental stories that justify returning to old patterns. Your brain becomes incredibly creative at coming up with reasons why today is different, why you deserve a break, why the rules don't apply right now. Physical resistance appears as fatigue, restlessness, or physical discomfort when engaging in new behaviors, Your body literally feels tired or agitated, even though there's no real physical reason for it. The most dangerous form of resistance is what I call the extinction burst. This is a temporary but incredibly intense increase in your old habit urges that occurs when your brain realizes its existing programs are being seriously threatened. Just like a light bulb burns brightest right before it burns out, your weak habits will seem more compelling than ever during the period when they're actually dying. The cravings will feel stronger, the rationalizations will feel more convincing. The pull toward your old patterns will feel almost irresistible. Most people interpret the extinction burst as evidence that their new approach isn't working, so they give up right before their breakthrough. They don't realize that these intense cravings and overwhelming urges are actually positive signs that indicate old neural pathways are being successfully disrupted. The extinction burst typically occurs between days 10 and 30 of habit change, and simply knowing it's coming allows you to prepare for it mentally and emotionally. When it hits, you can recognize it for what it is, a sign of progress, not failure. The first resistance protocol is cognitive reframing. When resistance appears, instead of fighting against it or trying to suppress it, you're going to reframe it as evidence of progress. Resistance means your brain recognizes that real change is happening and is activating its defense mechanisms. The stronger the resistance, the more significant the change you're creating. Develop specific phrases that you'll use automatically when resistance appears. This discomfort means I'm growing. This resistance proves I'm breaking through old patterns. My brain is fighting change because real change is actually happening. These reframes shift your relationship with resistance from viewing it as an enemy to recognizing it as an ally, a sign that you're on the right track. The second protocol is the 10-minute rule. When you feel overwhelming resistance to your new habit, commit to doing it for just 10 minutes. This dramatically reduces the psychological barrier by making the commitment feel manageable, and it often generates enough momentum to continue way beyond the minimum time. Your brain's resistance is usually strongest at the moment of initiation, not during the activity itself. Most resistance is anticipatory. It's worse in your imagination than in reality. Once you actually start the behavior, the resistance often diminishes significantly or disappears entirely. The 10-minute rule exploits this psychological phenomenon by getting you past the initiation barrier where most resistance occurs. The third protocol is environmental manipulation during resistance periods. When you're experiencing strong urges for your old habit, immediately change your physical environment. Go to a different room. Leave your current location entirely. Engage in a completely different activity that breaks the pattern. This disrupts the environmental cues that are triggering the urges and gives your conscious mind space to regain control. Your brain associates certain environments with certain behaviors, so changing your environment weakens the automatic activation of old habit patterns. This technique is particularly effective during the extinction burst period when urges are at their strongest. The urge surfing technique treats resistance like an ocean wave that builds up, peaks, and then naturally subsides. Instead of fighting against the urge or immediately giving in to it, you observe it with detached curiosity, almost like a scientist studying an interesting phenomenon. Notice how the urge feels in your body. Notice how it changes over time. Notice how it eventually passes without any action on your part. Research shows that most urges last between 3 and 15 minutes if you don't act on them. By learning to surf these urges rather than being knocked over by them, you prove to your brain that you can experience the urge without being controlled by it. This gradually weakens the power of the urge and strengthens your sense of self-control and agency. The accountability activation protocol involves immediately contacting your accountability partner or support system when resistance becomes overwhelming. This external support provides perspective, encouragement, and often practical strategies for working through the difficult moment. The simple act of verbalizing your struggle to another person often reduces its emotional intensity and helps you see it more clearly. You're not alone in this, and reaching out for support isn't weakness, it's strategic intelligence. Social support is particularly powerful during resistance periods because your brain is wired to seek safety in connection with others. When you're struggling alone, your brain interprets this as danger and activates stress responses that make resistance stronger. When you're connected to supportive others, your brain relaxes and becomes more open to change, more capable of perspective, more resilient in the face of difficulty. The pre-commitment strategy involves making decisions about how you'll handle resistance before the resistance appears. When your willpower is strong and your thinking is clear, you decide exactly what you'll do when resistance shows up. This removes decision-making from moments when your judgment is compromised by emotional intensity and makes your response automatic, rather than requiring conscious choice in a vulnerable moment. Write down specific action steps you'll take when you feel like giving up. Create if-then plans that automatically trigger helpful responses. If I feel like checking social media, then I will do 10 push-ups instead. If I feel like skipping my morning routine, then I will do just the first 5 minutes. These predetermined responses bypass the need for willpower in the moment because the decision has already been made. You're just executing a plan rather than making a choice. The final resistance protocol is strategic retreat and re-engagement. Sometimes the resistance is so overwhelming that pushing through would create trauma or burnout rather than progress. In these rare cases, it's better to strategically retreat, regroup, and re-engage when you're in a better state. This is not the same as quitting or giving up. Strategic retreat involves taking a planned, temporary break to restore your mental resources, adjusting your approach based on what you've learned, and then re-engaging with a modified strategy that addresses the issues that cause the overwhelming resistance. Elite performers know when to push through resistance and when to step back and recalibrate. Both are valuable skills that serve different situations. Remember that resistance is temporary, but the neural changes you're creating are permanent. Every time you successfully navigate resistance without reverting to old patterns, you strengthen your new neural pathways and weaken old ones. Resistance doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're succeeding so effectively that your brain feels threatened by the magnitude of change you're creating. Chapter 13. The Power of Your Social Ecosystem. Your social environment is the most powerful force shaping your habits, yet most people completely ignore its impact when trying to create change. The people you spend time with, the conversations you have, and the social contexts you participate in are constantly programming your brain for either success or mediocrity. If you want to eliminate weak habits permanently, you absolutely must strategically optimize your social environment to support your transformation. This isn't optional, it's essential. Human beings are fundamentally social creatures, and your brain is hardwired to mirror the behaviors, attitudes, and habits of the people around you. This phenomenon, called social contagion, happens automatically below your conscious awareness. When you spend time with people who have certain habits, your brain begins to adopt similar neural patterns through mirror neuron activation and social learning mechanisms. You literally become like the people you spend the most time with. Research shows some startling statistics about social contagion. You're 50% more likely to become obese if your close friends are obese. You're 70% more likely to develop drinking problems if your social circle drinks heavily. And you're 25% more likely to experience happiness if your friends are happy. Your habits don't exist in isolation. They're constantly being influenced by the social ecosystem you participate in every single day. This means that trying to change your habits while maintaining the exact same social environment is like trying to swim upstream against a powerful current. Your social environment creates a gravitational pull toward certain behaviors, and if that pull is opposing your desired changes, you'll be fighting an exhausting uphill battle that depletes your willpower and ultimately leads to failure. The first step in social environment optimization is conducting what I call a social audit. List out the people you spend the most time with, both in person and online, and honestly evaluate whether each relationship supports or undermines your desired transformation. Consider not just their obvious habits, but their attitudes toward discipline, growth, success, and personal responsibility. Some relationships will clearly support your goals. Others will clearly undermine them. And many will be neutral or mixed, neither particularly helpful nor harmful. The relationships that clearly undermine your goals require immediate, honest attention because they're actively sabotaging your transformation every single day. Even if the people involved have wonderful intentions and genuinely care about you, their influence might be toxic to your growth. You don't necessarily need to end relationships with people who have weak habits or limiting beliefs, but you absolutely do need to modify how you interact with them. Set clear boundaries and protect your transformation. This might mean spending less time with certain people during your critical formation period. It might mean avoiding specific activities or contexts where weak habits are normalized or encouraged. It might mean being more intentional about the topics you discuss and the activities you engage in together. The second step is strategically seeking out people who already embody the habits and identity you want to develop. If you want to become someone who exercises regularly, actively spend time with people who are passionate about fitness and movement. If you want to become someone who reads consistently and values learning, join book clubs or online communities focused on intellectual growth and continuous education. These relationships provide multiple powerful benefits for habit formation. They normalize the behaviors you want to adopt, making them seem natural and achievable rather than difficult or unusual. They provide living proof that your desired changes are possible and worthwhile. They offer practical knowledge and strategies from people who have already succeeded at what you're trying to accomplish. They create natural accountability and genuine encouragement during challenging periods when your motivation wavers. Online communities can be just as powerful as in-person relationships for habit formation, especially if you can't find local people who share your specific goals. Join forums, social media groups, or online programs focused on the specific changes you want to make. Participate actively rather than just lurking passively, and focus on giving value to others rather than just seeking help for yourself. The act of helping others reinforces your own learning and commitment. The third step is creating structured accountability partnerships with people who are also actively working on habit change. Accountability partnerships work brilliantly because they leverage your brain's social bonding mechanisms and your natural desire to maintain a positive reputation. When you know someone else is counting on you and genuinely monitoring your progress, you're significantly more likely to follow through on your commitments, even when motivation is low. Effective accountability partnerships require clear structure and mutual commitment. Set regular check-in schedules that you both honor. Establish specific, measurable metrics for tracking progress. Create meaningful consequences for both success and failure. The consequences don't need to be severe or punitive, but they need to be significant enough to actually influence your behavior and create real stakes. Share your daily progress honestly, even when it's not impressive. Discuss challenges and obstacles openly without making excuses. Celebrate successes together genuinely. Problem-solve difficulties as a team, bringing your combined intelligence to bear on obstacles. The key is creating genuine investment in each other's success, rather than just superficial progress reporting or checking boxes on a form. The fourth step is environmental anchoring, which involves consistently practicing your new habits in social contexts that naturally support and reinforce them. Instead of trying to build new habits in isolation, practice them around people who already have similar habits or who are working towards similar goals. For example, if you're building a reading habit, do your reading in libraries, bookstores, or coffee shops, where reading is the social norm and you see others doing it. If you're building an exercise habit, work out in gyms or join group fitness classes where exercise is what everyone does. The social context reinforces your new identity and makes the behavior feel more natural, more normal, more like something that people like you simply do. The fifth step is conversation optimization. The conversations you have on a daily basis are literally programming your brain for either growth or stagnation, expansion or limitation. Conversations focused on complaints, gossip, limitations, and problems train your brain for negative thinking patterns and victim mentality. Conversations focused on goals, learning, possibilities, and solutions train your brain for positive thinking patterns and agency. Start consciously steering your conversations toward topics that support your desired identity. Ask people about their goals and growth rather than their problems and complaints. Share your own learning and progress rather than your struggles and frustrations. The language you use and the topics you focus on literally rewire your brain over time, shaping your default thought patterns and emotional responses. Social modeling is perhaps the most powerful social environment tool available to you. Identify specific people who have already mastered the habits you want to develop and systematically study their behaviors, thinking patterns, and decision-making processes. You're not trying to copy them exactly or become a clone. Rather, you're trying to understand the mental models and behavioral patterns that enable their success so you can adapt them to your own life and circumstances. Spend time with these people directly if possible, or study them through interviews, podcasts, books, or other content they've created. Pay close attention to how they think about challenges, how they structure their days, what they prioritize, and how they talk about their habits. Your brain will unconsciously absorb these patterns and begin implementing them in your own life, often without you even realizing it's happening. The final step is creating social consequences and rewards for your habit change. Make your goals appropriately public in contexts where it serves you. Join challenges or competitions related to your habits. Create social celebrations for your progress milestones. Your brain responds incredibly powerfully to social recognition and approval, so strategically leveraging these mechanisms accelerates habit formation and makes the journey more enjoyable. Remember, that social environment optimization isn't about manipulation or using people for your own benefit. It's about creating mutually beneficial relationships where everyone is genuinely committed to helping each other become better versions of themselves. The best social environments are ones where everyone is growing together, celebrating each other's wins, supporting each other through challenges, and holding each other accountable with love and respect. Chapter 14. Making your transformation. Permanent, successfully eliminating weak habits and building strong ones is just the beginning of your transformation journey, not the end. The real challenge, the part where most people fail, is maintaining these changes over the long term and continuing to evolve your identity as your life circumstances inevitably change. Most people who successfully create initial change fail to maintain it because they fundamentally don't understand the ongoing maintenance requirements for sustained transformation. They think they've arrived and can relax their vigilance. Your brain never stops changing. Neuroplasticity continues throughout your entire life, which means your habits are never completely fixed or permanent. This is simultaneously an incredible opportunity and a serious challenge. It means you can continue improving and adapting throughout your life, which is amazing. But it also means you must actively maintain your positive changes or risk gradually sliding back into old patterns, which is sobering. The maintenance phase begins approximately 90 days after you start implementing new habits, when the behaviors have become largely automatic, but haven't yet become deeply ingrained parts of your core identity. This is a critical period because many people become overconfident in their progress and reduce their vigilance just when continued attention is most important. The first maintenance principle is progressive overload for habits, borrowed directly from the world of physical training. Just like muscles need progressively greater challenges to continue growing stronger, your habits need progressively greater challenges to continue developing and serving your growth. Once a habit becomes easy and automatic, you need to add complexity, increase the frequency, raise the standards, or expand the scope to prevent stagnation and continued growth. For example, if your daily reading habit has become completely automatic, you might challenge yourself to read more difficult or complex books, increase your reading time, add detailed note-taking and reflection to your reading practice, or start writing summaries of what you learn. The goal isn't to make habits harder for the sake of difficulty. It's to ensure they continue serving your growth and development rather than becoming mindless routines that you do on autopilot without any real engagement or benefit. The second principle is habit ecosystem thinking. Your habits exist as an interconnected ecosystem where each habit influences and supports the others. As you add new habits and refine existing ones, you need to consider how they fit together as a cohesive system rather than treating them as isolated behaviors. Strong habit ecosystems have natural synergies where each habit makes the others easier and more rewarding. Exercise habits support learning habits by improving brain function and mental clarity. Learning habits support productivity habits by increasing knowledge and skills. Productivity habits support health habits by creating time and resources for proper self-care. Design your habits intentionally to reinforce each other rather than competing for your limited time and energy. Look for ways they can stack together and create compound benefits. The third principle is seasonal adaptation. Your life circumstances will change dramatically over time due to career transitions, relationship changes, health challenges, family obligations, and countless other life events that you can't predict or control. Your habits need to be flexible enough to adapt to these changes while maintaining their essential function and identity reinforcement. This requires developing what I call habit modularity, the ability to modify the specific behaviors while maintaining the underlying identity and purpose. If you're someone who prioritizes continuous learning, but your life circumstances change dramatically, you might need to shift from reading physical books to listening to audiobooks during your commute, or from taking formal classes to having learning-focused conversations with colleagues and mentors. The identity remains consistent even as the specific behaviors adapt to your current reality. The fourth principle is identity evolution. Your identity shouldn't be static. It should continue evolving as you grow and develop new capabilities, new interests, new values. The person you become through eliminating weak habits is not the final version of yourself. It's simply the next version, a stepping stone on a lifelong journey of growth. Successful long-term transformation requires continuously expanding your identity to encompass new levels of excellence and capability. This means periodically reassessing your habits to ensure they're still serving your highest potential rather than just maintaining your current level. Ask yourself powerful questions regularly. What would the next level version of myself do differently? What new habits would serve my continued evolution? What existing habits need to be upgraded, refined, or even eliminated because they've served their purpose. The fifth principle is failure resilience. No matter how strong your habits become, you will occasionally fail to maintain them due to illness, extreme stress, travel, unexpected life events, or simply being human. The key to long-term success isn't preventing all failures. That's impossible. It's developing rapid recovery protocols that get you back on track quickly after inevitable setbacks. Create specific plans for common failure scenarios before they happen. What will you do if you get sick and can't maintain your exercise habit for a week? How will you adapt your learning habit when you're traveling for work? How will you maintain your productivity habits during intensely stressful periods? Having predetermined recovery plans prevents temporary setbacks from becoming permanent reversions to old patterns. The rapid recovery protocol involves 3 simple steps. Acknowledge the setback without harsh self-judgment or shame. Identify the specific circumstances that led to the failure so you can learn from them, and immediately return to your habit routine at the very next available opportunity. The length of the setback matters far less than the speed of your return to consistency. A one-day break that you recover from immediately is infinitely better than a one-day break that turns into a week because you feel guilty and defeated. The sixth principle is continuous education and optimization. Stay actively connected to new research and strategies related to habit formation, neuroscience, and personal development. Your understanding of how to create and maintain positive changes should continue deepening over time. What works at the beginning of your journey may not be optimal as you develop greater sophistication, self-knowledge, and capability. Join communities of people who are also committed to long-term growth and development. Share your experiences generously. Learn from others who are ahead of you on the journey. Stay inspired by people who are living proof of what's possible. Continuous learning prevents complacency and ensures your approach continues evolving with your needs and circumstances. The seventh principle is teaching and mentoring. One of the most effective ways to cement your own transformation is to help others who are earlier in their journey than you are. Teaching requires you to articulate and clarify your understanding, which deepens your own knowledge significantly. Mentoring creates accountability and sense of purpose that strengthens your commitment to maintaining your own positive changes. Look for opportunities to share your experience and knowledge with others who are struggling with similar challenges. This might involve formal mentoring relationships, creating content that helps others, or simply being more open about your own journey with friends and family members who could benefit from your insights. The final principle is celebration and reflection. Regularly acknowledge and celebrate your progress, both the major milestones and the daily consistencies that most people overlook. Your brain needs positive reinforcement to maintain motivation for continued growth. Create meaningful rituals for recognizing your achievements and reflecting deeply on how far you've actually come. Keep a long-term progress journal that tracks not just your habit consistency, but the broader life changes that have resulted from your transformation. Document improvements in your energy levels, relationships, career success, health markers, and overall life satisfaction. This creates a powerful source of motivation during challenging periods and reminds you viscerally why the effort is worthwhile. Remember that maintenance is not about perfection. It's about persistence and continuous adaptation. The goal is not to never fail or struggle. The goal is to keep growing and improving over time, becoming progressively more capable with each passing year. Every day you maintain your positive habits is a day you're becoming a stronger, wiser, more capable version of yourself. The compound effects of this consistency will create results that far exceed what you can currently imagine. Chapter 15. Your new life starts right now. Everything you've learned in this entire program has led to this exact moment. You now possess the knowledge, strategies, and complete systems necessary to eliminate weak habits from your life forever and replace them with automatic success behaviors that serve your highest potential. But here's the brutal truth. Knowledge without action is completely worthless. All the strategies in the world won't help you even slightly if you don't actually implement them starting right now, today, this very moment. The difference between people who genuinely transform their lives and people who stay trapped in mediocrity isn't intelligence, talent, resources, or circumstances. It's the willingness to take immediate, decisive action on what they know to be true. Most people will consume this information, agree intellectually that it's valuable and accurate, and then continue living exactly as they did before. They'll wait for the perfect moment, the right circumstances, or a burst of motivation that never actually comes. But you're not most people. You wouldn't have made it this far if you were. You're here because something deep inside you knows with absolute certainty that you're capable of far more than you're currently experiencing. You're here because you're genuinely tired of being controlled by unconscious patterns that keep you playing small and settling for average. You're here because you're ready to take real control of your mind and start living at the level of your true potential. Your brain is neuroplastic, which means it's constantly changing based on your thoughts, behaviors, and experiences every single moment. Every moment you delay implementing these strategies is a moment your brain is strengthening the existing neural pathways that have kept you trapped. Every moment you wait is a moment you're voting for the old version of yourself rather than the new version you want to become. Time doesn't pause while you prepare. It's either working for you or against you. The harsh reality that nobody wants to hear is that there will never be a perfect time to start. There will always be stress, distractions, obligations, and convenient excuses available if you're looking for them. The people who succeed aren't the ones who wait for ideal conditions to magically appear. They're the ones who start with imperfect conditions and improve their situation through consistent action, day after day after day. Your transformation begins with a single, non-negotiable decision. The decision to stop being a victim of your own mind and start being the conscious architect of your thoughts and behaviors. This decision must be absolute and unwavering. You cannot partially commit to rewiring your brain. You cannot casually implement these strategies only when you feel like it or when it's convenient. Real transformation requires total commitment to becoming someone fundamentally different than you are today. Start with one habit, just one. Choose the weak habit that's having the biggest negative impact on your life, or choose the strong habit that would have the biggest positive impact if you build it successfully. Apply everything you've learned. Identify the underlying identity that supports this habit. Design your environment strategically to make success inevitable. Use the neural pathway replacement system intentionally. Implement robust accountability mechanisms. Commit completely to 90 days of consistent practice without exception. Document everything meticulously. Keep a detailed record of your triggers, emotions, successes, and failures. This data will become invaluable as you refine your approach and eventually expand to additional habits. Your transformation story will inspire others and remind you powerfully of your own capability during challenging moments when doubt creeps in. Understand that resistance is absolutely inevitable and prepare for it mentally and emotionally. Your brain will fight against these changes with everything it has. You will experience intense urges, elaborate rationalizations, emotional intensity, and moments when giving up feels like the only rational choice. These experiences are not signs of failure. They're signs that your transformation is working so effectively that your brain feels genuinely threatened by the magnitude of change you're creating. Connect intentionally with others who are on similar journeys. Join communities of growth-oriented people. Find accountability partners who will challenge you. Surround yourself with people who support your growth rather than your comfort. Your social environment will either dramatically accelerate your transformation or systematically sabotage it. Choose people who inspire you to become better, rather than people who enable you to stay the same. Celebrate every single victory, no matter how small it seems in the moment. Each time you choose your new habit over your old one, you're literally rewiring your brain and becoming a different person at the neurological level. These moments absolutely deserve recognition and celebration because they're the fundamental building blocks of your new identity. Remember that this transformation extends far beyond just changing a few surface behaviors. You're learning to take conscious control of your own mind, which is genuinely the most powerful skill you can possibly develop. Once you master the ability to consciously direct your thoughts and behaviors rather than being controlled by unconscious programming, there is literally no limit to what you can achieve in life. The compound effects of this transformation will touch every single area of your life in ways you can't yet imagine. Your relationships will improve dramatically because you'll be more present, intentional, and emotionally regulated. Your career will accelerate because you'll have the discipline and focus to do what others won't. Your health will optimize because you'll make choices based on long-term success rather than short-term comfort. Your happiness and life satisfaction will increase exponentially because you'll be living in alignment with your deepest values rather than being controlled by primitive impulses. But these incredible benefits only come to people who actually take action. Reading about neuroplasticity doesn't rewire your brain. Understanding habit loops doesn't eliminate weak habits. Knowing about identity-based change doesn't transform your identity. Only consistent, deliberate action creates the neural changes that lead to permanent transformation and a completely different quality of life. The time for preparation is over. The time for research is over. The time for waiting is over. The time for action is right now, this very moment. Your weak habits have controlled you for long enough. Your unconscious patterns have limited you for long enough. Your old identity has defined and constrained you for long enough. Starting right now, you have two clear choices in front of you. You can continue living as you have been, controlled by patterns you didn't consciously choose, limited by beliefs you didn't consciously adopt, and trapped by habits that serve your past rather than your future. Or you can take real control of your mind. Eliminate the weak habits that have been holding you back, and become the person you know deep down you're capable of being. The choice is entirely yours. But understand clearly that not choosing is also a choice. Not taking action is voting for your current reality to continue unchanged indefinitely. Waiting for tomorrow is functionally the same as choosing never, because tomorrow you'll have the exact same choice again. And people who don't act today very rarely act tomorrow. Your new life is waiting for you on the other side of your comfort zone. Your massive potential is waiting to be unleashed through disciplined action. Your dreams are waiting to become reality through consistent implementation of these proven strategies. But they will only wait so long. Opportunities don't pause indefinitely while you build up courage. The moment you decide to implement these strategies is the moment your transformation genuinely begins. The moment you choose action over hesitation is the moment you cross the point of no return. The moment you commit fully to 90 days of rewiring your brain is the moment you start becoming who you were always meant to be. Your weak habits have stolen enough of your life, enough of your potential, enough of your time. Your unconscious patterns have wasted enough of your capability. Your old identity has limited and constrained you long enough. Today is the day you take back control. Today is the day you start educating your mind to kill weak habits forever. Today is the day your new life genuinely begins. The question is simple. Will you start today, or will you be the exact same person a year from now, still wishing you had started today? The choice is yours. Your transformation is waiting. Your new identity is calling. Your best life is genuinely possible. But it all begins with one decision. The decision to start right now.